Hello, I'm Alyssa, and this is the story no one ever thought I'd tell. My own family left me to die in the woods, abandoning me when I needed them most. But the worst part? The lies they built to cover up the truth. Secrets that not only stole my future, but erased my existence. And through it all, my art became my weapon, exposing what they tried so hard to bury. But why would a family betray one of their own like this? Before we dive in, tell me, have you ever felt like the ones who should love you most are the ones holding you back? What's the hardest betrayal you've ever faced? I'd love to know. Drop a comment below. Where are you listening from? Let's talk about this. I could feel the weight of the years pressing down on me as I stood in front of her, my mother, the woman who had abandoned me in the woods. The room felt too small, the air too thick, like it was suffocating us both. I had imagined this moment countless times, but nothing could have prepared me for the intensity of it. "You left me," I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to keep it steady. "You left me to die out there, and now you want to explain yourself?" She stood there, her face pale, eyes avoiding mine, her hands wrung together in a desperate attempt to calm herself, but it was clear she was struggling. "Alyssa, you don't understand. It wasn't like that. Don't!" I cut her off, my anger boiling over. "Don't give me that. I was a child, a little girl. How could you do that to me?" Martha Stevens, my mother, looked older than I remembered. Her hair was graying, her skin sagging in places where it hadn't before. She had once been the pillar of my world, but now she seemed so small, so broken. And I was angry. Angry that I had spent all these years trying to understand her, trying to forgive her for something that had never been explained. The silence stretched between us, as thick and suffocating as the shadows in the room. I couldn't look at her anymore, so I turned away and crossed my arms tightly across my chest, like I could somehow keep all of the pain from spilling out if I just held myself together. "I'm sorry, Alyssa," she whispered, almost too softly to hear. "I never meant to hurt you." "Sorry?" I repeated bitterly, spinning back toward her. "Sorry doesn't change anything. You're not sorry. If you were, you wouldn't have left me there alone." Her face crumpled. "I didn't have a choice. I had to protect the family." "Protect?" I laughed, but it was hollow, empty. "You call abandoning your child in the woods protecting the family?" Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't try to wipe them away. "I thought I was doing what was best. I thought—" "You thought?" I screamed, my hands shaking with the force of my words. "You thought abandoning me was best? How could you think that would ever be okay?" But there was no answer, no explanation that would ever make this make sense. I backed away from her slowly, my heart racing, my chest tight with the grief that had been building for years. "I don't want your apologies, Mom. I don't want your lies anymore. I want the truth, the whole truth." At that moment, the doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. I felt my heart drop, and my mother looked at me, her expression confused, but I didn't care anymore. I walked over to the door, my footsteps heavy on the wooden floor. When I opened it, a man stood there, holding an envelope in his hands. His face was unfamiliar, but the letter he held was addressed to my mother. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice cold, still angry. He nodded, stepping forward and handing me the letter. "I'm sorry to intrude," he said, his voice low and measured. "This is for Mrs. Stevens. It's from someone who's been keeping an eye on your daughter." I froze. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Someone had been watching me? After all this time? The man turned to leave, but I didn't let him go. "Who's it from?" I demanded. "Who's been watching me?" "I don't know," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "I just deliver the messages." I stared at the envelope, 1,000 questions running through my mind. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to hear what some stranger had to say. But my hands betrayed me as I tore it open, my heart pounding. The letter inside was short, but its contents were enough to make my blood run cold. "Dear Martha, it began. I know you've been struggling, and I know that what you did was out of love. I've been watching over Alyssa from a distance. She's strong, and she survived everything you've put her through. Please know that you did what you thought was best, even if it didn't seem that way. I felt sick. The words felt like a slap in the face, a betrayal from someone I didn't even know. I turned to my mother, my body shaking with rage. How could you let someone like this, someone you don't even know, speak for you? How could you let them tell me it was okay? It's not okay. It was never okay. Her eyes were wide with panic, and she took a step back, but I didn't care. Is this your excuse? I spat, holding up the letter. Some stranger telling you that everything's fine? I could feel the tears threatening to fall, but I refused to let them. I had nothing left for her. Go away, Mom, I said quietly, my voice breaking. I can't do this anymore. As she stood there, unable to form a single word, I turned my back on her and walked away. But I wasn't walking away from just her. I was walking away from everything. I could still hear her voice echoing in my ears as I sat on the edge of the couch, my hands clenched into fists. The words my sister had just spoken felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Betrayed. That's what I was. Betrayed by the one person I thought would always have my back. Creasa, my own sister. How could you? I asked, barely able to contain the tremor in my voice. All these years you've been lying to me, standing by her. I thought you were different. Creasa, my older sister, looked down at her hands, unable to meet my gaze. The room felt smaller with every passing second, as if the walls themselves were closing in on us. I didn't know how to tell you, Alyssa, she murmured, her voice strained. I didn't know how to say it. You didn't know how to tell me? I repeated, disbelief flooding my chest. What? That you were complicit in everything? In all the lies? You didn't think I deserved to know? Her eyes finally lifted, but there was no anger in them, only guilt. It's not that simple, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want you to know the truth because it would shatter everything. It would tear us all apart. The weight of her words crushed me. The family I had been trying to hold together, the family I thought loved me, was it all a lie? I stood up abruptly, pacing the room. Shatter everything? I asked, my voice rising. What about me, Creasa? What about me? You knew what Mom did to me. You knew everything, and yet you stood by her, protected her. You never once stood up for me. I didn't know what to do, she pleaded, her hands trembling. I was scared, Alyssa, scared of what it would mean if I went against Mom. She would have torn our family apart, and I couldn't lose her. Couldn't lose her? I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You've already lost me, Creasa. You lost me the moment you chose her over me. I've been alone all this time, and now I know why. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could see the pain in her eyes, the guilt that ate away at her. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore. The sister I had loved, the sister I thought I could count on, had abandoned me too. How can you even say that? I demanded. How could you just sit there and let her destroy me? Let her destroy us? Creasa's eyes welled up with tears, and she stepped forward, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry, Alyssa. I never meant for any of this to happen. I swear I didn't know how bad it was until it was too late. I took a step back, my heart pounding. Too late? It's been too late for years. And now you think you can just apologize and make it all better? I want to make it right, she said, her voice almost pleading. I didn't know how much it hurt you. I thought you had moved on. I didn't realize the damage it caused. I shook my head, my emotions a chaotic storm. You didn't realize? How could you not realize? You were there, Creasa. You watched it all happen, and you chose to stay silent. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with the weight of our words, and yet, despite everything, I could feel the smallest flicker of something inside me, the tiniest inkling of hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for us to heal, but the damage was already done. Creasa wiped her eyes, her voice softening. Alyssa, please. I know I can never undo the past, but I need you to know that I'm sorry, and I'll do anything to make it right. Stop, I interrupted, holding up my hand. Stop. I need time, Creasa. Time to think. Time to figure out what's left of this family, if anything at all. She nodded, her face crumpling with the weight of my words. But I could feel the walls closing in on me again. This wasn't the sister I had known. This wasn't the family I had believed in. This was a broken, fractured lie, and it felt like it was falling apart before my eyes. As I walked toward the door, I couldn't shake the weight of everything that had just been revealed. All the years of pretending, all the years of silence, everything felt like it had been leading to this moment. I could still hear Creasa's voice calling after me, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. The truth was out now, and it wasn't something I could just ignore. Not anymore. I needed to know the rest. The secrets, the lies, everything. And I was going to make sure I found out no matter what. But for now, all I could do was walk away. The night was cooler than expected as I stood before the large, white walls of the gallery, a world of vibrant colors and haunting shades on display. My heart thudded in my chest, louder than any brushstroke I had ever made. This was it, the culmination of years of pain, healing, and revelation. My art, my truth, now exposed for the world to see. The gallery buzzed with the hum of voices, people admiring, discussing, but I felt only the weight of every glance. I had chosen to use this night to lay bare the family secrets that had haunted me for so long, but with that choice came a deep, unsettling vulnerability. It wasn't just the world that was watching, it was my family. As I watched people approach my artwork, I could feel the rising tide of fear and pride mixing inside me. Each painting, each piece of art, carried with it a different part of my journey. The scars, the moments of betrayal, the nights I had spent crying, and the silent anger I had buried deep within. The fear was there, unmistakable. I was exposing myself, allowing strangers to peer into my soul. But somewhere beneath that fear, a strange sense of pride surged. My truth, even if it was painful, was finally out in the open, and that made it feel worth it. I moved through the crowd trying to keep my composure, but a sudden voice cut through the hum of the room. Alyssa Stevens, the voice said, calm and almost too confident. I turned to see a man I didn't recognize standing beside one of my paintings. I've been following your work for some time. My stomach twisted. He spoke with such familiarity, as though he knew me, as though this moment had already been scripted. I'm sorry, who are you? I asked, trying to mask the unease creeping through me. My name is Thomas. He smiled slightly, his eyes never leaving the piece he was admiring. I wrote an article about you, about your art and your family. The words hit me like a punch. My breath caught in my throat and I struggled to keep my composure. What do you mean, my family? Thomas's gaze softened, almost regretful. I've been researching your family's history. Your work speaks volumes, but it also reveals things. Things I think you've been avoiding. Why are you telling me this? I demanded, my emotions bubbling up. Why now? I think, he said softly, that you need to confront the truth. You're not alone in this, Alyssa. I've been watching you, yes, but I've also been trying to help you see what's been kept from you. There's more to your family than you know. His words swirled in my head like a whirlwind. I didn't know how to react. This stranger who had been following my journey had known things about me that even I didn't fully understand. And I had spent so long trying to piece together my past, trying to make sense of the wreckage that had been left behind. But now, there was something new, something I didn't want to face. I forced myself to speak. What do you mean by that? What is it that I'm missing? He took a deep breath, as if deciding how much to reveal. I know about the things your mother tried to hide from you, the secrets she's kept locked away. You're not the only one who's been hurt by this family, Alyssa. His words hit me like a tidal wave, knocking me off balance. I had always known that my mother had kept things from me, but now, here was this stranger, confirming that the very thing I feared most, the thing I had been trying to avoid, was staring me in the face. The weight of everything that had happened in my life, every hurt, every unanswered question, suddenly felt unbearable. "You need to know the full truth," he said, his voice gentle but insistent. "You need to confront it, or it will continue to haunt you. It's in your art, Alyssa, and it's time to face it no matter the cost." I could feel my heart racing in my chest, and as the room seemed to close in around me, I knew that this was a too. I sat at the edge of my childhood home's worn-out couch, staring at the envelope in my hands. The letter, addressed to my mother, was thick with intent, and the words inside were a shock to my system. It wasn't the kind of thing I expected to read. It wasn't the kind of forgiveness I thought I could ever allow. My mother, Martha Stevens, had received a letter from a stranger who claimed to have watched over me during my darkest moments. They had sent her their forgiveness. I couldn't fathom it. Why would anyone forgive the woman who had left me to die in the woods, alone and scared, at the age of 12? Why would anyone forgive the woman who had never shown me love, who had never once apologized for abandoning me? I threw the letter onto the table, my hands shaking. A surge of anger built in my chest. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand why a stranger would offer grace to the person who had never given me anything but coldness. It was as if the universe was mocking me, telling me that I didn't have the right to hold on to my anger, to keep my walls up. But what else could I hold on to? What else was there for me if not my own bitter sense of justice? I stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind me. I needed air. I needed to think. Outside, the cold wind bit at my skin, but it couldn't match the chill I felt inside. I walked aimlessly down the street, the world around me nothing but a blur as my thoughts swirled. My mother, she had always been so distant, so cold. The letter was a slap in my face, and now the thought of forgiveness seemed impossible. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the revelation that came with it. The stranger who had sent the letter didn't stop there. They had been watching me for years. They had been watching me since that night in the woods. I froze on the sidewalk, trying to comprehend the weight of the words. The stranger had seen me when I thought no one was there. They had been there, silently protecting me in ways I had never known. It felt like a violation. It felt like my own privacy had been stolen. Why would someone do that? Why would someone who didn't even know me care enough to watch over me like that? The letter said that the stranger had been following my journey. They had seen my art, and they understood. They understood the pain I'd been carrying. They knew the truth. But there was no comfort in that knowledge. It only deepened the hurt. My family had abandoned me, and now here was someone else who had been watching from the shadows, keeping their distance while I struggled alone. 16 years ago, when I had been left in the woods, I had believed that I was invisible to the world. I had believed that I was nothing. Yet here was this stranger, this nameless figure, who had been watching me as I built my life from the wreckage of my past. They had known my story before I even knew it myself. I could feel the walls closing in around me. I stood there for a long time, trying to make sense of it all. The weight of my past seemed to be pressing down on me, the memories of my mother's neglect, the harsh words, the cold silences. But then, amidst the storm of emotions, something inside me clicked. I couldn't keep running. I couldn't keep living in this shadow, trapped by the past. I turned and started walking again, the harsh wind cutting through me. But now, the cold didn't matter. I knew what I had to do. I had to confront my mother. I couldn't keep pretending that I didn't want answers. I couldn't keep pretending that the secrets of my family didn't matter. I had to face it all, no matter how painful. I walked to her house, my mother's house, the place where my childhood had been shattered. The door was slightly ajar, and I stood in front of it for a moment, feeling the weight of everything. The years of anger, the years of silence. It all led to this moment. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I was scared. I was scared of what I might hear, scared of what my mother might say. But I knew this was the only way. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. I sat in my apartment, the boxes around me a physical manifestation of the life I was about to leave behind. My hands trembled as I packed the last of my things: photos, mementos, objects that once held meaning but now felt like heavy weights in my hands. This wasn't just about leaving my apartment. It was about leaving the life I had built in the shadows of my family's deceit. I could hear my mother's voice in my head, accusing me of abandoning everything we had. But how could I stay in that toxic place any longer? The betrayal, the manipulation, the lies. I couldn't let it control me any longer. It was hard, yes. Leaving behind the familiar, the home that once had laughter, even if it was drowned out by the silence of the years that followed. But there was a deeper need inside me, one that had been building for years. I needed peace. I needed to know that I could build something of my own, separate from the suffocating grip of my family. As I closed the door behind me, the apartment felt like a tomb, one that held all the ghosts of the past. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle in my chest. It was done. I drove, not knowing exactly where I was going, but the miles between me and that apartment felt like a release, like I was finally free. The quiet hum of the engine was soothing, the only sound accompanying my thoughts. I needed to get away. I needed space. So, I headed to a remote village I'd heard about, a place far from the memories and the people who had betrayed me. The village was exactly what I needed: secluded, peaceful. It was a stark contrast to the chaotic life I had just left. The streets were lined with small, charming cottages and cobblestone paths that led to places I had never seen. It felt like stepping into another world, one where I could leave my pain behind. But as I parked my car and stepped out, a feeling of unease settled over me. I couldn't shake the sense that I wasn't as alone as I thought. That's when I met him. A man, older than me by a few years, approached with an odd familiarity in his eyes. "You're Alyssa, right?" he asked, his voice soft but certain. I froze. "Who are you?" He smiled gently, a strange kind of warmth in his gaze. "I've been following your journey, your story. It's remarkable. I've even written about it." I didn't know how to respond. My instinct was to run, to shut him out, but something about his calm demeanor kept me there, rooted to the spot. "You've been following my journey?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why?" "I've seen your art. I know what you've been through. Your family. It's not what it seems." A cold chill ran down my spine. "How do you know about my family?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I've been watching over you for a while now, Alyssa. Even during those dark days in the woods, when you thought you were all alone, I was there." My mind spun. Someone had been watching me? Someone had been there when I had been left to die? My heart raced, and a wave of nausea hit me. It felt like an invasion. This stranger knew too much, and yet he had done nothing to help me. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice sharp with a mix of anger and fear. He took a deep breath, as if he were preparing to reveal something heavy. "I know your family's secret," he said quietly. "The financial betrayal, the lies they've told you. It's all part of a much bigger story." The world around me seemed to blur. I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Your family, Alyssa," he said, his voice low and steady. "They've been lying to you about everything, about why they abandoned you, about what really happened with the money they took. It's all been a lie." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My mother, my sister, they had lied to me about everything. The pain, the betrayal, it was all deeper than I had ever imagined. I felt a rage surge inside me, a mixture of fury and disbelief. How could they do this to me? How could they let me suffer for so long, knowing the truth? "I don't know if I can ever forgive them," I said, my voice breaking. "How do I move on from this?" He looked at me with an almost sympathetic gaze. "You don't need to forgive them to move on, but you do need to face the truth. And once you do, You'll have the power to decide what comes next. I stood there in silence, his words echoing in my mind. The truth had always been there, hidden in the shadows. But now that I knew, it felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on me. As I left the cafe, the streets of the village felt different. I had walked through them before, but now they felt like they were leading me to something new. Something that wasn't shaped by the past, but by the choices I would make going forward. The weight of the past still lingered, but it didn't feel as heavy. I had the truth now, and with it, I had the power to let. I sat at my small kitchen table, the file before me open to reveal the documents that would forever change my perception of my family. The letters, the financial statements, all of it was damning. For the first time, the truth had been placed in front of me, stark and undeniable. The things my family had kept from me, the lies they'd told, I could no longer ignore them. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. How could they have done this? How could they hide this from me for so long? The betrayal hit me like a wave, a cold rush that flooded my chest. It wasn't just the money, it was the trust. They had manipulated me, kept me in the dark while they made decisions that affected all of us. I had been nothing more than a pawn in their game, never once trusted with the truth. I stared at the documents, my mind racing. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. Everything I had known, everything I had believed about my family had just shattered. How could they treat me like this? The anger swelled up inside me, but with it came a feeling I hadn't expected. Grief. Grief for the family I thought I had. Grief for the life I could never get back. I couldn't stay in this apartment anymore. This place, these things, they all reminded me of a past that I was now forced to reckon with. The lies, the deceit, the unspoken truths. It was too much. But I couldn't just run away from it either. I had to face it. I had to confront them. As I sat there, struggling to wrap my mind around the magnitude of the betrayal, my phone buzzed. The message was from the stranger, the one who had reached out to me before. His warning echoed in my mind, but now it felt even more ominous. He had written, "I know what you've uncovered. Your family has a lot more to answer for than you think." I felt a chill wash over me. This stranger knew everything. He knew what my family had done, and he was more involved in my life than I could have ever imagined. Why had he been watching me? What did he want from me? I stared at the message, my heart racing. What was he trying to tell me? Had he known about the secrets all along? I could feel the weight of his words press down on me. The man who had been following my journey was now tied to the very fabric of my family's betrayal. The phone rang, and I nearly jumped. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew it was him. "Hello?" I answered, my voice tight with a mixture of anger and anxiety. "Alyssa," he said, his voice calm but tinged with something darker. "I think it's time you confront the truth. You can't hide from this forever." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "What do you know about my family? What's really going on?" He paused, his voice low. "There's more, Alyssa. Your family isn't just hiding money. They're hiding their involvement in something far bigger. The truth is darker than you can imagine, and it's time you knew everything." I felt my stomach twist. "What does that mean?" I demanded. "I can't explain it all over the phone. Meet me. There's a place I need to show you." The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at the screen. The mystery of this stranger deepened, but so did my need for answers. I couldn't just sit here anymore. I needed to know what had been kept from me, what my family had done to me and to themselves. I gathered my thoughts, knowing I couldn't run away from this truth any longer. I had to face my family, but first I had to uncover everything that had been hidden from me. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but I knew I couldn't turn back. I walked out of my apartment, the evening air biting at my skin as I made my way to the address the stranger had given me. Every step felt like a decision that could change everything. As I walked, memories flooded back, of my family, of the gatherings we used to have before everything fell apart. I had thought they were happy times, but now they felt tainted by lies I'd never known about. 16 years ago, I'd been a child, blissfully unaware of the secrets swirling around me. Back then, my family had been my world. Now, they were the source of my pain. The thought of confronting them with the truth seemed impossible, yet here I was, walking toward that very confrontation. I arrived at the meeting spot, an old cafe on the edge of town. It looked nothing like the place I had imagined. The outside was weathered, faded by time. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of coffee and old wood. The stranger sat in the corner, watching me with a calmness that unsettled me. I walked over to him, the weight of my decision heavy in my chest. "Tell me what you know," I said, my voice trembling. He looked at me, his eyes sharp. "It's time to hear the whole story. Your family has been keeping you in the dark for far too long. You deserve to know the truth." I sat down across from him, my heart pounding in my chest. The weight of everything, of the lies, the betrayal, the yeah. The room was quiet, still. The weight of the moment settled heavily on my chest as I stood before my canvas, my life now reduced to these strokes of paint. The colors, the shapes, they were all I had left. I hadn't just created this piece, I had bled it into existence. The truth, my truth, was now framed, hung on the walls for everyone to see. For years, I had carried the weight of the secrets, the lies, the betrayals. Now, it was time for the world to know. My family, my past, it was all out there in the open. The gallery felt like a confessional, the spotlight a harsh truth I could no longer hide from. As I stood there, watching people gather around, their eyes scanning the work, I felt a rush of emotions. Fear, yes. Anger, absolutely. But most of all, relief. I had finally done it. I had used my pain to create something that could never be erased, something that could never be ignored. A woman approached me, her eyes wide, searching my face. "This is your story," she said softly, as if reading me aloud, the way people always do when they finally understand. I nodded. "It is." Her gaze lingered on the painting for a moment before she spoke again. "It's powerful. What made you put it out there?" I hesitated for only a second before answering. Because I can't keep living in the shadow of it, it was time for me to face it. The weight in my chest shifted, lighter now. I had done what I set out to do. My art had given me a voice, and I had used it to confront everything that had kept me shackled. But then came the message. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I didn't want to look. I knew what it was. It was the reaction I had been waiting for, the response I'd known would come. I unlocked the screen with trembling hands, dreading it, but knowing I couldn't avoid it anymore. My family had seen the paintings. Their words, scattered in a text thread, were full of disbelief and denial. But there was one message that stood out. "We're done with you. You've gone too far." I closed my eyes and let the words sink in, the anger rising once more. I had expected it, of course. What else could I have expected from the people who had buried the truth for so long? But hearing it still hurt. Yet there was something else now, a clarity, a realization that my journey didn't end with their approval or forgiveness. I had reached the point where their words no longer mattered. The truth had been unleashed, and it was my truth, not theirs. I left the gallery later that evening, my mind spinning with the mixed emotions that still clung to me. It had been years of building, of hiding, of lying to myself about what I deserved. Now there was nothing left to hide. The world had seen what I'd been through. It was time to leave the past behind and move forward. The streets felt quieter than usual, the night air cool against my skin. For the first time in a long while, I breathed deeply, feeling the weight of everything I had fought for. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding. I had let it all go, piece by piece, and now I was free. 16 years ago, I couldn't even imagine a day like this, one where I didn't have to beg for approval, where I could finally step out from the shadows of my family's expectations. But now, I was walking into my future, uncertain and open. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There were scars, there were losses, but there was also hope. Hope that I could rebuild my life without the chains of the past holding me back. The city stretched before me, the lights twinkling like stars. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I was going to be the one to shape it. No more secrets, no more lies, only the truth, raw and unfiltered. As I stand here, reflecting on everything that has brought me to this point, I realize that life is never as simple as it seems. We all carry the weight of our past, whether we acknowledge it or not, and sometimes it's only when we face those darkest moments that we find the strength to move forward. My story isn't unique. It's the story of many, the story of finding your voice amidst betrayal and hardship, the journey of reclaiming yourself in a world that often tries to define you by your past. But here's the thing. You don't have to carry the burden forever. You have the power to rewrite your story, to let go of the pain, and to step into the life that's waiting for you. It's not easy, and it's not always a straight path. But every step forward is a victory. So I ask you, what are you holding on to that's holding you back? What would it feel like to release the past and take that first step toward freedom? If this video resonated with you, if it touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, let me know where you're watching from, and share your own journey. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next story, and if you didn't, that's okay too. Tell me why, and let's start a conversation. Remember, your story is yours to tell, and your future is yours to create. Let's keep moving forward together.